Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Afternoons on the Dove. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and today's a very special day because somebody that we had on Skype on the show several weeks ago is now with us live in the studio, and we're delighted to have in the studio with us today Charlie and Maxine Marsolini, and they're formerly Southern Oregon residents, but somehow they lost their way and ended up in the Portland area. But certainly no stranger to us down here, and you probably have heard him. Charlie is formerly a certified public accountant, and Maxine writes books on blended families. She's been on Focus on the Family. Charlie's been counseling people and doing financial counseling for quite a few years. You use the Crown material.
Right.
And you both have co-authored a book. And by the way, we're going to give away two of these books today. And if you're watching on the Dove TV right now, you see it there on the screen. Rebuilding Families, $1 at a Time. Achieving Financial Stability in Spite of an Uncertain Economy. So Charlie, Maxine, what a joy to have you in the studio.
Well, thank you. It's such a joy to be here, Perry.
Yeah.
It's always fun to come back to the Rogue Valley and see your face.
Oh, well,
K-Dove
thank you.
is still here.
Well, why did you write this book?
Well, we wrote this book because too many people don't understand why and how to relate to their money. They are spending too much. They are in over their heads. They are not understanding that they can stretch their own dollars and not knowing how to do it. We are finding there's a lot of financial ignorance going on. And people are living in entitlement-type lifestyles where they just want to keep up with whatever credit will allow them to do. Mm-hmm. And in that process, the bankruptcies are rampant, the foreclosures are happening, and people are just struggling like crazy to maintain the lifestyle they thought they had. But in our area, up in Portland, even in our own church that we're attending, there's a lot of people losing their job every week. And now, as Perry, we were just discussing, Evangel Bookstore here is, everybody's losing jobs still at a very fast pace. And so we wanted people to actually survive in the downtime of an economy and learn how to stabilize their own finances.
It seems to me, Charlie and Maxine, that when we don't understand the consequences of getting in over our head, you use the word entitlement. There's this feeling out there that, well, I'll just get another credit card or I'll just move this one over to that one. I don't think we realize the compounding effect of what's going on. And then one way we wake up and there's too much month left over at the end of the money, you know that old saying. Mm-hmm. But there doesn't seem to be a consequence. Even with the high rate of bankruptcies and foreclosures, you still get a credit card application in the mail. What's going on?
I believe it starts from the top on down. It's our leadership in our country, leadership in county governments, and even our churches today. Mm-hmm. And just focus on the government. As we talked earlier today, it's not just the United States, it's worldwide. And what we've done, we don't allow people to have consequences anymore. And it's like the old cliche, kicking that can down the road. Mm-hmm. And eventually, the can's going to hit a wall and bounce back. And that's where I believe we're at, very close to that right now. And we will have consequences. I believe we have an opportunity to reduce. There always going to be consequences to bad choices that we all make in life. Mm-hmm. None of us get out of this life, I believe, unscathed. We always have some pain and consequences to bad decisions. But we have an opportunity now to move forward if somebody would take the mantle of leadership in our nation. Our nation hasn't had a budget for 3 years. We're running astronomical debt that everybody aware of. Mm-hmm. And then you got worldwide debt the same way. There's no way you can really pay it off realistically in a lifetime. I mean, when I say a lifetime, a generation, 20 years. So I feel America could take the lead. I think the last time I was on, I shared something about God wants us to be shrewd, and especially the people of the light. We have God's word, we have God's leadership, we have God's principles. And what we heard in church Sunday, which I really loved, what God created us, He knows how we work. And He gave us our word, His word, as a framework to make us work properly. So
the Bible has a lot to say about money, doesn't
absolutely,
it?
Yeah.
And there is a way to handle it. And I would assume that if there's ever a New Year's resolution for families to adopt this year is get out of debt.
I like that one. I like that.
But the problem is it just becomes a resolution.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a transformation of their lives. This is what I found. And we all have made resolutions. I've made them in my life too. And what happens is they last a month or two or three or four until a crisis comes down. Right. Something happens. Let's say you're trying to work a budget and your furnace goes out. Something happens. And all of a sudden, they resort back to the way things used to be. And I believe that people need to come to a point in their life where their lives are transformed by God's Holy Spirit.
All right, so the old saying is, and Patrick Doyle is one of the counselors I have on the air here a lot, and I really coined what he has picked up, and that is people don't change unless one of two things. Either they're inspired or they're desperate, either inspiration or desperation.
Okay.
And so we'll continue to kick the can down the road. But I think America and families are waking up. Something's really wrong here. And you become a slave to this thing.
Right.
Your peace is gone. You can't serve God.
Right.
You can repent a million times, but until you do something about it, you just keep on making the mistake.
Right.
And you two, I think God's given you guys a heart to really take this mess on with individuals and families and help them get through it. And can they get through it?
Yes.
You can.
Again, I think what's happening, there's a lot of, I used the word the last time with you, is hopelessness that people have. And they wanted someone to tell them this can be done. And I believe it can't, we do seminars, get up in front 7 hours, you can download a whole bunch of content, but that's great. People get good ideas, but most people need somebody really to hold their hand and to work with them, maybe a month to month, year to year, as a mentor, keeping them accountable. I had a friend of mine, I've been counseling for a couple of years, and I haven't seen him for about a year. We had lunch together, and after we got through at lunch, he fell back in this hole again.
Oh.
And he says to me, he says, Charlie, what I want to do, would you mind if we get together at least once a month so I can be accountable to you? Now, before I couldn't get him to do that. But now he's got so desperate. You know, he was getting out of debt, and all of a sudden things changed. We didn't talk anymore. He was on his own. And some people really can't handle on their own for a while. It's like an alcoholic or somebody drug addicted. They need rehab, basically. And we need more people in the church to come alongside families and hold their hands.
I want to get into the nitty-gritty of getting somebody out. And let me just say to our viewers and listeners, if you want to ask a question and join the conversation, we're glad to conference you in. And if you want to remain anonymous, we'll respect that request as well. The phone number is 776-5368. All right, somebody comes into you, sits down with you. They got a list of bills this high and a list of income this high. Where do you start?
Well, we start with the spending. Just like our nation, most of us have a spending problem, not an income problem, and people spending more than they make. So basically, we go through each and every expense they have. And that's why I don't try and make decisions for people, but I coach them through the process. I give them categories. 85% of the people nationally, and even the people I meet, do not have a budget, and they have one pot of money. That's their checkbook. If there's money in their checkbook, they figure they got money to spend. And once they get zero or minus zero in their checkbook, they figure they got problems they can't spend anymore. And that can become the end of it. So I come out and I try what a budget really does. And we have a budget in our book. I think it's page 100, something like that.
Page 100.
But anyway, what we do is we break it down very simply into 14 categories, what I call 14 buckets of money. So instead of all the money being piled in one place, we start breaking it down. So in one area, we start breaking out housing. You know, how much is your housing really costing you?
Okay.
We go through all the utilities, the rent or mortgage, whatever they have, telephone expense, maintenance, and repair, and that kind of thing we go through. And we have automobile expense. Entertainment expense is a large area that people we just talked about that this morning, have a real tough time giving up. At the seminar, I do a case study, and I give them some homework to do, and then I ask for what would you do in this particular case study. Well, no one ever make a suggestion we should give up entertainment expense. They like to go out. They want to spend money. They like to go on vacations. They deserve it.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
Okay.
So we have to get a little tough with these people and say, maybe for a short period of time, maybe a long period of time, you have to give up some of this and find something that's free, entertaining, and not spend $200 or $300 or $400 a month, that kind of thing.
We have this mentality, we'll get through this, it'll be okay next year. And now I'm hearing the word, the new norm, this cutback, this tightness that we're in. We did a show just the other day called The Fourth Turning. It's a cycle of history, and we're going to be in this until, say, maybe 2028.
I agree with that.
So here we are. This is the new norm. We buy used cars now. You know what I'm saying? We have to rethink this thing. And that may be hard for young people to grasp, or maybe even some adults.
It's called contraction. busy walking backwards. And the example I give is what we've done starting about mid-'70s or 1980. We've reached into the future, 20, 30, 40 years into the future, and we took all our earning power and pulled it into today.
Wow.
And said we're going to spend it all today.
Wow.
And not thinking maybe we wouldn't have the earning power in the future. And if we did have, we wouldn't have the cash flow to pay for everything we're spending today.
Yeah, we got an X generation in the presidency that's all they have lived on is
Right.
borrowed money.
Yes.
Correct.
You know, what's the tug of war when you start tackling this subject of getting your house financially in order, your financial house in order? What a woman goes through and what a man goes through, because one gets it and the other one really doesn't. So how do you get the husband and wife on the same page?
See, that's part of your biggest problem, is that most often the husband is the one that doesn't want to get on the page. The women are wanting to, which brings out the fact that the women are looking for the stability far more often than the men are willing to give up their frivolity, let's say. They still want to do the golf games as much as they did before. They still want to do the hunting trips as much as they did before. They want to go to the movies. It can be either or, you know, in the relationship. One's usually the spender, one's the saver, but it creates that, like you're saying, that tug-of-war problem where they've got to get on the same team and realize they can each give up a little bit and come out ahead for the whole family. And the biggest thing we see people gain when they start looking at how possible it is to rein in their finances and live on what they make, they get happier. There's more peace at home. Right now, domestic violence has gone up because there's more stress over money. 3/4 of the American population are under money stress today. That's not good. At least 1/3 of the children are concerned about it. So our families are in turmoil, and when there's drama going on in the home, there's a lack of peace going on. And the enemy of our souls wants us to lose this battle, but God has made a way out of it for us. And we've got to keep working on that. And so Charlie deals with an awful lot of people who the wife will call in. In most cases, we just sat with a couple that way a month ago, and the guy's got more excuses about why he can't do it than why he should do it.
Is it an ego thing?
Yeah, it's a pride.
Probably.
Pride issue with men. Men are the hardest to really break down. But I will never meet. I always have a lady call, and she wants to have a council meeting.
Yeah.
I always tell them, I won't meet with you. I need to meet with you and your husband. Well, my husband will not meet with you. I says, well, you're gonna have to pray with him or talk him into it or do something. Ultimatums, whatever it may be, he's gonna have to, because your situation is very serious. They usually have children in the home, that kind of thing. We just went to a home not too long ago.
Yeah.
And the husband, I walked in, I just knew it, that he looked really angry.
He was angry.
And he knew that I was the enemy. I mean, not that I was, but he believed that I was when I walked in the door, that I was going to try to tell him what to do, you know?
Yeah.
And before we finished that day, I prayed with him, and this guy had tears in his eyes. And with his problem, a lot of people's problems, we have a lot of situations he had. In this particular case, I can talk about this because nobody knows, there are no names involved.
Yeah.
He started crying and talking about he was molested as a child. I mean, a lot of stuff that come out of a financial meeting.
Wow.
And you start hearing some of these stories and the hurts that he had. But biggest hurt he was, he says, this past year, God took his mother home. And he loved his mother, and the mother was a great-grandmother, and why did God do this? Here's a guy, a God-fearing man one time. Once his mother died, that was it. He had nothing to do with God anymore.
He was angry at God.
So we had to get through that. So in that household and a lot of households, there's something underneath all this.
All right, before we take a break, how did you disarm him?
How?
How did you disarm his anger?
I told him I told him my story of my life where I had a different thing. I said, you loved your mother was great, and I hated my mother. I did. I grew up with a mother that my father didn't treat very well and sent her away when I was 2 years old. So I didn't have a mother, you know? I said, life is really not fair for anybody. We all have stories to tell. And I said, behind every face is a broken heart.
Right.
I says, we all have one. I sent yours too.
Right.
But this fellow was really broken down. And I think once he got, able to share his heart, I was able to talk about other things, about finances and stuff like that.
All right, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. Charlie and Maxine Marsolini are with us today, and we're dealing with their new book. I'm going to hold that up. Maybe you can see it there on the camera. Rebuilding Families $1 at a Time. We do have a couple of these books we're going to give away at the end of the program. If you have any questions, you're welcome to join us. 776-5368. We'll be right back.
Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove. Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove.
Well, we're back with our very special guest today, Charlie and Maxine Marsolini, and we're talking about getting you some financial peace and freedom in your life. And they've co-authored a book, Rebuilding Families $1 at a Time, Achieving Financial Stability in Spite of the Uncertain Economy. This is a powerful resource for you, and you need to get a copy of this, put out by Maxine Marsolini and Charlie Marsolini. Charlie is, in his professional life, was a certified public accountant, and now he's doing financial seminars in churches all over the place. And if you'd like to have him come to your church, how do they get a hold of you?
Rebuildingfamilies.net.
Okay, rebuildingfamilies.net. There you go. That works. That works. And boy, let me encourage you to get a copy of the book and go to Amazon. You can just go online to your website. To where?
It'll leave you right to a link there, and right on the front page of rebuildingfamilies.net.
Rebuildingfamilies.net. Before I get into some detailed questions, how is this book laid out? Because it is a tremendous resource.
This book is laid out in a manner that's going to help people start their own plan, help them move towards financial freedom. And I'll just read you the quote we've used at the opening of Chapter 1 by Larry Burkett. And we're at a pivotal moment in history, and we've got to recognize that. We're at a pivotal moments in our families. Finances are that important. So the best protection you can have against the misuse of credit is to determine that you will control the use of credit and refuse to allow it to control you. There is no substitute for personal discipline and self-control in the area of credit. And that's by Larry Burkett, and he was the co-founder of Crown Financial Ministries, and he's got lots of materials out on the market. But the problem is that we need to learn how to control this. So we created this book, 18 chapters, to help you at home create a plan to get yourselves out of the mess you're in. And even if you're not in a mess, how to do finances better, because we've got chapters in here that are talking about even investing, creating legacy, training the children. We've got a blended family chapter going on in here that's going to help you navigate those nasty waters of trying to combine two families into one with the ex on each side or not. And the children from blended families get involved, which is something I talk a lot to. But I just want to let you as listeners know what's going on with the way the chapters are laid out. One thing we've got at the end of each chapter is a section, maybe you can't see it, called the bottom line.
Right.
It's called the bottom line. And in that, there's usually about 7 recaptured points from the chapter that will help you drill down. Like on the opening chapter, it says, this financial crisis is unlike any other at any time in history. And we all need to take it just that serious, because we are not living in the day and age when I grew up, my husband grew up, or most of you. We are in a new era where the debt has become so huge. We're at $15 trillion of national debt on the United States, and it's growing by the second. We can't allow this to take us all down. And if we can shore up our families, we can shore up the nation all the better, and choose leaders who will help us do that. So the second point is that stimulus money will not solve our problems. And that's a huge one that the government is caught up in right now. And the taxpayers are on the hook for stimulus money. We got to realize that. And the third is that debt is no friend, and on and on. And one thing I think is really important that we bring out in that chapter is 150,000 new jobs are needed every month to keep up with the population growth. I just lost my microphone here. But we do that. And then at the end of those bottom line things, we've got an Increase the Wealth Challenge that's going to help you identify your own issues in your life of where it comes to money. What troubles you the most after reading this chapter, for instance? What facts surprised you? And take an honest look at how this pivotal financial crisis has affected your emotional and physical health. Because on an emotional level, money problems create stress, and they bring trouble into the home. So we don't want you to lose hope. We want you to admit those areas that aren't working, admit the things that are, and admit what isn't, but don't lose hope, and then start getting the help. And then at the end of each chapter is what we call the common sense, which is a word straight from the Bible. And in this case, we're using a verse that says, let us be self-controlled, putting on faith and love as a breastplate. And we move on through 18 chapters that way to help you understand money at home, around the world, in the nation, And on any front you'd like to understand it on, we're covered a lot because Charlie's history in money is very extensive.
All right, Rebuilding Families, $1 at a time, and make sure you make yourself available to get a copy of that. And be listening. We'll be giving away a couple of books here at the end of the program. Charlie, is most of the financial stress over credit cards? I mean, mortgages are one thing, car payments is another, but is the invariable interest rate item, is that the one that gets most people in trouble?
I think they all have a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously the credit card debt, if you don't pay it off each month, the credit card interest is much higher, and that's determined by their financial DNA, which is credit scores.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
We're going some of that. I mean, card debt. I mean, that's another problem too. So again, credit scores will determine how much you pay in interest on that. And mortgages, as we all know, what's happened the last couple of years. We've been talking to this for the last 20 years. When I was, with Crown as a regional director, is even mortgages are not a good place to be for a lot of people. But we bought into the fact that everybody in America should own a home, no matter what the cost. Even though the interest rate is low, home ownership, a lot of responsibility comes with home ownership, not just the interest in the debt. It's a commitment for many, many, many years to come. Right. And I think the psychology was that this is a great American dream, is to own a home, which is beautiful. Everybody likes to have a home. There's no question about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But the point is, can they really afford it? Do they have a stable job? That kind of thing. And when you start figuring out on a 30-year loan how much people pay, sometimes 2.5, 3 times for a home, an interest cost alone, sometimes becomes it's a lot larger number than a credit card debt. Right. So I think the credit card debt was keep people alive today, from month to month, so they can pay for their addiction of all the stuff that they own.
So how important is a credit card score? I mean, now you hear companies advertising, know your score, check it regularly. I mean, is that a scam to just get your monthly?
No, I think it's really great. There's a website, I think I mentioned it last time, but I'll emphasize it more this time, annualcreditreport.com. We all should go to that. There's a couple of them that are scams called Free Credit Report. That one there tries to sell you other stuff, okay? But the government sometimes they pass some good laws, once in a while. And annualcreditreport.com gives you actually a free credit report each year. There's 3 credit agencies. So if you don't do all 3 at one time, you're actually going to get 3 free a year. There's a little variance between the reporting of all 3, but they're pretty close, And why I always advocate people checking their credit scores, because 80% of them have mistakes in them. There's erroneous reporting to credit agencies. There's stuff that's not taken off that should have been taken off years ago. Maybe someone went through a bankruptcy. Maybe someone missed payments, but it just never dropped off. That keeps coming on all the time, and it affects them. So if they go on there and they find out that there are mistakes, little mistakes on there, they could write to the agency, and the agency has 30 days to respond to them, and they can get these mistakes taken off. Get those mistakes taken off, the credit score goes up. The credit score goes up. How I coach people is, hey, you got some credit card debt, go in and get your interest rate reduced, so now you can pay off the credit card a lot faster, that kind of thing. Wow. Or if you're going to do a home mortgage, if it's in your budget and the correct down payment and all that, you have a lower interest cost buying that. So it's monumental. When I was doing, I was pastoring, I did a lot of weddings, and the first thing I would do, I always made sure I did 6 months of counseling. On the first counseling session, before they even showed up, I have both of them go get their copy of their credit scores from annualcreditreport.com.
Really?
Seriously. And then I would look at them, and I would take his and give it to her, and hers I give it to him. So they know, especially older people, and it makes a big difference. And with younger people, there's another scam going on today. When you come out of the hospital almost now, you get a Social Security number. And what happens is a lot of families tapping in to their nieces and nephews, even some of their stepkids and that kind of thing, getting their Social Security numbers and opening up accounts. So kids have a shock when they're 18, 19, 20 years old. They go out and get credit, and they find out their credit's all bad, but they never knew it. So this is why it's even good to check, even for a child, to make sure no one's picked up on it.
Identity theft being what it is.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Right. But in the family, a lot of this is happening, not just things we read about in cyberspace, although that's a problem too.
Yeah.
Imagine family members taking advantage.
Are we heading for a crash? Is it avoidable?
I don't think it is. I hate to say this. I think God's preparing people, His people. He always says a remnant. People of the light.
Right.
And I really believe that we've had an opportunity. Larry Burkett wrote a fantastic book in 1992, The Coming Economic Earthquake.
Right.
If you read that book, and I didn't tell you it was written in 1992, you would say, "Wow, he just wrote this book," and it was profound. I mean, I really believe God's Spirit spoke to him, and it was a warning. And we've been warned for 20 years now.
Right.
And I don't think Christians really heeded that. I think we could get into the rush, what the world is given to us.
What do you say spiritually to couples when they're not honoring God? Are they sinning by continuing to compound this mess? Is it a sin?
Well, I wish we can say that, being in debt and excessive debt is the 11th commandment, and obviously it isn't. Right?
Yeah, right.
So being in debt is not sin, but it could lead to sin.
Right.
That's what to me, what happens is it leads to other things like Maxine was bringing out. It becomes violence in the home. There's rage in the home because of the death of stress. People start losing their jobs. It leads to stealing, cutting corners, manipulating. A lot of suicides going on today. So it leads to a lot of things that people wouldn't ordinarily do.
But to bring back to Perry's question, how do we change their mind from hopeless to hopeful? And I think what we do the best is come in there with saying, God does have a way for you to get out of this. We're going to help you with a plan, and we'll show you how you can cut back here and do this here. And a lot of times it's kind of some simple things that need to go into the equation. And they need to stop going to the Dutch Brothers drive-through twice a day. They need to stop this and put that money into something more important. They need to, trim down from $500-600 a month food bill and get it down around $350, say. They need to start doing these things and figuring out how to do it, because today there are so many convenience foods made that a lot of families don't cook.
Yeah.
And they waste a lot of money by not cooking. So if they could just on Saturday afternoon have enough hamburger bought up to make meatballs, in 5-pound quantities of meatballs, they can drag them out of the freezer or things like that. They can prepare meals ahead of time. And
with all due respect, I mean, doing your grocery shopping at the corner store is not very
Doesn't
wise.
work,
That's
no.
at least 10, 15, 25% higher in a lot of cases.
That's true.
All right, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. And coming up in a few moments toward the end of the program, we're going to give 2 of these books away. But if you have any questions and you want to join us, let's talk about rebuilding your family $1 at a time. Charlie and Maxine Marsolini are with us today, and we're delighted to have them with us. If you want to join us, give us a buzz. We'll be right back.
Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove. Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove.
Well, we're talking about your money and how to get some financial stability and peace in your life. If there's one thing that debt does, it robs people of peace. Right. And that lack of peace in a home creates all kinds of tension. And then the counseling sessions for marriages go up, and divorce rates go up, and suicide rates go up. I mean, it's just pretty crazy. And if I was the devil, that's what I would do, Yes. And I think what you're saying through your book, this is a tremendous resource, folks, to get a copy of it, to just start your family. Read the book. Use it as a point of information on how to maybe God speak to you in working your way out of that kind of pressure. One thing God wants for everybody is peace.
Yes.
There's no question about that. And boy, finances can really rob you of peace. And this notion that we have to live beyond our means, or something's going to bail us out, is just nonsense. And I realize times are tough. Instantly, your life can change if you lose your job, and God's aware of that. And I know your heart to help people through that. But I want to ask you a question, Charlie. Just as a CPA, a person who's dealt with money all your life, we're watching a lot of reaction to the banks of America. There's been these occupiers,
Right.
and they're protesting events, corporate America and big banks. We watched the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac thing just implode, and now they still want to give it more money. It's just a mystery to me. I mean, this doesn't even make, arithmetic 101 sense. Are the banks a problem?
Well, I believe what happens is every segment of the banking industry has been a problem. Everybody's got skin in the game, And I believe the bottom line for all of us, from the person that's buying to the person that's selling, is greed. Everybody wants what they want, and that's where everything began. Mm-hmm. But I believe the government really took the lead many moons ago with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's and loans like that, FHAs and stuff. Today the government controls 90% of the mortgages now by controlling all the banks.
Wow,
that's amazing. So I was sharing with you at the break. Everything was going pretty well until they decided we used to have what you call mark to market, right? In other words, if you had a $100,000 mortgage on the books, and all of a sudden you find out it's only worth $50,000, well, you had to mark it down. So it marked down the assets, and it made the bank look more real, like maybe they didn't belong in the game if they were making a lot of bad loans. This is what the government was encouraging too, having everybody have a mortgage, even if people couldn't afford to have one. And the banks were a lot of forced to take a lot of these loans too. So what happens is they changed the law from mark to market to mark to make-believe. And what happens, this is why most of your banking institution right now are not recognizing all these bad mortgages. They're still sitting in the books at a fair market value they thought they were before the crisis. But they're easing them in the loss a little bit at a time. They're writing them off. And so they're buying kicking the can down the road, buying time as long as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. If the truth were known, the banking system is broke, just like America is really broke today, because we're forced with the Federal Reserve printing money and keeping the banks flush and the European banks flush. We've been dealing with this problem a long time ago. So to me, I believe we need to let the weak fall and the strong be survivors. The system.
By its sheer attrition, it would take care of itself, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So just let it go.
Well, it'd be painful for obviously the ones that are going bad. And the biggest problem with the banks, like the run on banks that we read today, in Greece right now, people empty money. What's going to happen is the banks don't have the money to give out. So somebody has to come along, like the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank, and start pouring more money into it. And why you don't have money? It's all leveraged. Some 15, 20, 30, up to 40% of the money put in banks is leveraged. So somewhere, this whole system has to deleverage itself. And if we don't do that, we're done. It's just an implode and nothing. Everything was zero.
If there's a silver lining on the black cloud here, it would seem to me that America is not the only country in trouble. The whole world is in trouble.
Right.
So who's going to be the first dynamo that falls over?
Well, Europe, I think, has been more socialistic in the last 20 years than we have. We're going down that road, obviously right behind them. But when you asked that, what came to my mind was, I think the epitome of materialism is drawing us away from God.
Right.
And I believe that's a silver lining in deleveraging or contracting.
Well, one of the gifts of the Spirit is self-control.
Right.
So, are we really people of the Spirit when we're not in control?
No, that's why I'm saying I think we mentioned earlier, it's going to take a crisis. We were out with lunch on Sunday with a bunch of people, and they were asking me some of these questions. And they said, who's going to win for president? I said, you know something? I don't think there's someone that's a great leader yet that's emerging. And I said, I'll tell you what it's going to take. It's going to take a crisis between now and next November in this country for a leader to emerge, to draw us where we need to be, to make a difference, And we, like you mentioned, we need to be put in a desperate position. Right now, we're not desperate enough. We think we can take care of anything because we're America.
I think one of the greatest evangelistic tools we have is for somebody to obtain financial peace in their life. That would echo unbelievably through the unbelieving community that there's a way out of this mess.
Yes.
Remember the old ad on TV when E.F. Hutton spoke?
Yeah.
Everyone listen?
Yeah.
That's a great point. And I said matter of fact, I shared this in some of my seminars. I said, when I started out as a Christian, they gave me this book called The Master Plan of Evangelism. And we go around the block and knock at doors. I hated doing that because I didn't have a relationship with people. And I felt I'm doing knocking at the door. I'm sharing who Christ is. And they're looking at me, who are you? I haven't got a story to tell, and I don't know you. You don't know me, And I think the greatest evangelism tool of all is because money speaks. Money talks to people.
Right.
It's how you live with your money. How do you evangelize someone your neighbor down the street, when he sees you're one paycheck away from losing your house also?
Right.
So who is this Jesus Christ in your life? So you're right. I think it makes a real big difference to have, when you have God's light and God's word in your life, and you're not borrowing, because borrowing means you're a slave.
What do you do with giving when you're helping somebody get out of debt? Giving is part of that, isn't it?
Yeah, giving is number one. When we start with our budget, the first item is gross income. Mm-hmm. The second item we reduce from that is tithe. Then after that comes taxes. Then we have what we call net spendable income. And net spendable income is all they can look at to spread the other 14 categories I was sharing with to start with.
That's probably a real
it's very hard,
for a lot of people in it.
Another thing, if people go into a reorganization like a Chapter 11, they're not allowed to give at all. This is why I like for people to work with Christian counselors, where they will put God first in their life. Because I really believe God can do more, obviously, with 90% than they can do at 100%.
Now, in light of that, I think a lot of people, some people will say, well, just start giving something. I mean, that is a start, because one of the tricks of the devil is, well, you haven't paid your tithe in 100 years, so you're not going to get caught up. Why do it now?
Well, I'm not talking about get caught up. I think many people can hear that message on tithing. They really say to themselves, I think people justify because they tell me all this, say that I don't have enough money to tithe. I think these people do over there, but I really don't. So when I make enough money, I will. They really never understand about putting God first in their life, okay? And they never really internalize that. When they get into a situation, especially when they come and see people like myself or Maxine and I, we sit down with couples, the people start realizing that to put God into the equation. Because I'll tell you, I've been a CPA, a financial planner all my life. Mm-hmm. I says 1 and 1 equals 2 in my world. Mm-hmm. I said in God's world, that 1 and 1 could be 100. Once you commit your life to God and you commit your plan to God, that's Proverbs 16:3. It said, commit your plans to the Lord and you will see, and your plans will succeed. I said, I can't guarantee you that. God can bring things into your life that right now, I don't know what it is, but I can tell you a lot of history. I met a lot of people, how inheritances come in, a job you never figured would come in. I mean, all kinds of things happen in your life that God would bring. Again, going back to what we heard Sunday, God created you, and God knows how you work. And that is phenomenal. I love that.
We're talking to Charlie and Maxine Marsolini about their new book, Rebuilding Families $1 at a Time. So let me encourage you to get a copy of this. Check it out at Amazon.com, or you can go to their website, rebuildingfamilies.net, and you can order a book there. Are you finding creditors negotiable when you're working with a family?
Very much so.
I mean, to the point where they will suspend or lower interest? I mean, how does this work?
Matter of fact, creditors have been doing that. When I first moved to Oregon in 1969 from Boston, I had a lot of logging truck drivers, logging companies, and they couldn't get up in the woods in the wintertime. So we used to go to the bank for them. They used to get skip payments because the weather was so bad.
Oh, okay.
3 or 4 or 5 months, and the banks would really work with them and not foreclose on them. Why? Because they sat down. A lot of people run away. Many people get to a point they get so discouraged, they just don't even, they just pile the mail up and even open it up anymore. Right. So the best thing we can do is sit down with our creditors and say, this is where I'm at. I'm meeting with a coach, or I'm doing it myself, whatever they're doing. This is my budget right now, and this is all I have to give you. Or can I skip for 4 or 5 minutes? Just sitting down one-on-one with somebody. I haven't seen many say no.
Okay. How does that work with credit cards?
Dealing with a company. You call them up, deal with them. I show people, we got numbers I give them to talk to the people that are in charge and can make some of the decisions, But they'll always ask a credit card company, could you send me in what you're talking about, the paperwork, the plan that you have.
Okay.
And we send in the plan. People just love the honesty.
Yeah.
Say, put the cards on the table. Hey, this is where I'm at.
Okay.
I want to pay you, but I can't do that right now.
All right.
That kind of thing.
Maxine, what do you say? We got about a minute and a half left. What do you say? What's your last-minute contribution to this topic?
Well, my last-minute contribution is that you can do it. Listeners, you can do this. We know couples who have done it. We are debt-free ourselves, and we know many others, just average kind of people, who've gotten debt-free. They've gone from discouragement to hopefulness to freedom in their finances, and they're loving it. But the Lord has been the key ingredient. If you want to learn a little more about the book, the Christian Journal has a review in it this month, and so does the Upper Rogue Independent. Had one in the November 18th issue. But pick up some more information, and with this being the Christmas season, you're looking for gifts anyway. Why not bless your adult kids, bless your friends, your neighbors with a way to find freedom out of their financial mess? We've got this book available in paperback and on Kindle.
All right. Thank you both. And God bless you for what you're doing and the commitment you have to see this done. This is so encouraging. Let me say to our viewers, we have 2 books to give away, and we'll give them to callers 1 and 2 at 7765368, 7765368. Thank you for making that available. You can't have my copy. Good job.
Good.
And we'll get you back online. I'd like to Skype you back in and do some more geo-economic, political discussions with you, Charlie. Can we do that?
Yep, super.
All right. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.